Hello, everybody, and welcome back to More Than a Muse. I'm Star.
I'm Sadie, and welcome to another episode of March Madness. As a reminder, it is Women's History Month. So, with us being a women's history podcast, of course, we're shouting that out. And we always talk about our merch at the end of the episode. But we're going to
Yes.
give a quick little shout out. We're both wearing our Hysterical Society. Go watch on YouTube. You can see how awkwardly we're showing off our sweatshirts right now. But, anyways, it's March Madness, which is a month that we always celebrate women's rage, women's anger, justified vitriol, and we have the Hysterical Society merch collection from last year that we're bringing back because I love it. I wear mine all the time. So if you're interested, we have so many different colors and versions on our website. And yeah, we love it. We got t-shirts, hoodies. It's a good time.
Sweatshirts, they're all on
sweatshirts.
there. Check them out and join our little Hysterical Society. It's funny
Exactly.
and it makes people laugh.
It's funny, right?
I think we're
it's funny.
clever.
I think we're pretty funny. Also, we do still have our Myths of Madness sweatshirt that we did 2 years ago. Been our most popular merch item ever, especially like on TikTok. So you can check that out. We love that one as well, which is like illustrated versions of like mythical creatures or animals, like just different words that have been assigned to angry women in the past. And so, yeah, kind of celebrates that, reclaims it. So you can check that out.
Yep. All on morethanamuse.com. So
Mhm.
go check it out, everybody. Along with our March Madness, we're doing our little Media Madness theme this year. Last week, we talked about Trial by Talk Show, and this week, we were talking about the paparazzi. How could we talk about the media and not talk about the paparazzi?
Absolutely. And some of these people are women that we've done full-length episodes on before. I know specifically, have we done an Amy Winehouse episode?
I don't know if we have, actually.
Wow.
I think we were going to, and then I don't think we did.
What a mistake, first of all, but that's okay. We'll add Amy Winehouse. Her Back to Black album is one of our monthly albums that we need to listen to. Maybe that can be
Yes.
April. We can make up for that. One of the best that
Definitely.
ever was. But anyways, we do have a Britney Spears episode that we did where we really talk about the paparazzi and like the media circus that surrounded Britney and maybe like what led up to that. So especially, with Britney Spears, I think we've all seen that story happen in real time. But if you want like more of the outside of it, of just like her biography, how she was able to become who she is now, you can go listen to that episode.
There's also a book I'd recommend called Toxic Tabloids, and it has a chapter on a different woman for each one, and there is a Britney one.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really good, actually. I think I've only read like half of it. I need to finish it, but
Perfect.
nonfiction, you guys. Is anyone out there finishing their nonfiction? It's so
That's a
difficult.
Great point. I will say the nonfiction book that I have finished is the Monsters book that
Yeah, that one was.
I don't remember the first. Hold on, let me shout out the author of that because I'm so with you that like how hard is it to finish a nonfiction book? I'm currently reading The Woman That They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore.
I read
which
that in
is
January. So good.
Amazing, which
Yes.
is an incredible story about and just overall book about women's mental health institutions in the 20th century. Super interesting, but it just takes a long time
It
to get through a
does.
nonfiction book.
That one was a little bit easier because I feel like it reads kind of like a novel.
It absolutely does. Like, I
Yeah.
almost forget that I'm reading a real story because of how it reads. I
Yeah,
agree.
which is so nice. But some of the other ones, I'm still trying to finish my February nonfiction book. I'm behind.
What was your February nonfiction book?
Marriage, A History, How Love Conquered
cool.
Marriage by Stephanie Kuntz. And
That's cool.
it's interesting, but it's just really, it's very nonfiction-y. It's very much so like, and this society does this, and this society does this. And so it's like a little bit harder to finish, but we're getting there.
That's
we're
fair.
Almost done. Yeah.
The book I shouted out earlier is Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer. Loved that. It kind of reads more like a memoir, so it helps a nonfiction book come through a little bit, a little bit more easy to digest. And I'm actually reading a memoir right now that I'm really enjoying called Strangers, A Memoir of Marriage by Belle Burden. You talking about your marriage book made me think of it.
Yeah.
essentially it's a woman telling the story of her marriage dissolving. I'm only halfway through, but I mean, spoiler, but you find out within the first couple pages, like her husband comes to her, she finds out about an affair, and then also in the wake of the divorce realizes that the terms of the prenup were maybe not actually good at all, and she, like, went against
No.
the advice of her family with the prenup that she did sign, and so it's, like, the fallout of that, and it's been a really interesting memoir. Like I said, I'm only halfway through, so I guess I won't speak on it fully, but I would recommend it. It does trigger the whole, like, wow, people can be really evil, though, and, like,
Yeah.
and I think that that's what she's doing a really good job of, is because this first half of the book, she's really describing how and when she fell in love with him, and I think that it's making me as the reader kinda, like, feel the weight of that betrayal even more, because I'm like, "How did this person that you're describing that sounds really wonderful end up doing this to this woman?" So,
Yeah.
and I'm about to probably read part 2 where she kinda does describe what happens in the fallout, but I would recommend it. Again, though, it's not like it's a downer,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's not an uplifting read, but I'm enjoying her perspective and her
I
story.
feel like so many memoirs end up being downers, which is kind of a bummer.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Life is so sad, I
Life is
guess.
sad, and I guess that's how you come up with things to write books about.
Well,
But
there you go.
anyways,
Lots of book suggestions if
a
anyone's
lot of
looking for
book
something.
recommendations.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we jump in then to the topic?
Let's talk about the paparazzi. So, paparazzi, or singular form paparazzo, are independent
No way.
photographers who take pictures of high profile people like actors, musicians, athletes, politicians, or other celebrities who go about their daily life routines. Nowadays, you even add in like influencers, public figures, anyone who happens to end up in the news that week can be a
Mhm.
victim of the paparazzi. They're known for their relentless pursuit of celebrities using telephoto lenses, which are like those lenses that zoom in super, super, super close, even when you're really far away. Very invasive. And electronic flashes, and even following them in vehicles to capture personal, unflattering, or private moments. Then they sell the photos to tabloids, gossip magazines, websites, and then they're published to attract attention, increase sales, and it's a very controversial type of photography, obviously, because it's violating the subjects that are involved in it in so many ways. And it's very invasive. A lot of public figures and celebrities, a lot of the ones that we'll talk about today, have talked about the concerns of the extent that paparazzi are willing to go to in order to get a shot. And I think that's probably the issue more so than just taking pictures of public figures in public.
Totally.
It's more so the lengths that they'll go to in order to get the shot that they wanna get, and there's been a lot of, like, restraining orders against paparazzi, lawsuits, judgments against them, there's been laws passed in other countries. The United States is a little bit more liberal with it, and one of the questions I saw a lot of the times online during research was, "Why is it not illegal?" And the fact of the matter is, in the country that we live in, because of freedom of the press and freedom of speech and all of the other things that we have, taking pictures of people in public isn't illegal.
Yeah, you could take a picture of anybody. Any of us could.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can
That's a
take a
protected
picture of
right.
any person in public and it's totally
It's
allowed.
kind of it's like, oh, if you're consenting to leave your home, you're kind of publicly consenting to potentially get photos taken of. And
Yep.
I will say it's been interesting to see how that has been weaponized in the era of social media. We,
Mhm.
of course, don't have to dive into that. That's kind of like a totally different tangent, but like it's kind of interesting how I think we can all realize that paparazzi is very toxic, but I think sometimes we almost like use it as like a way to like police each other and hold each other accountable,
Yes.
because that's like kind of the only way we can now is by taking photos and videos and like putting it online. It's like, I'm going to make the internet do something about this. And
Yeah.
then oftentimes the internet really does, like, and it can get scary. Like they can quickly dox people from these
So
videos that are
fast.
uploaded.
No, it's scary. And it's an important distinction too, I think, for everyone to realize that like a public place is like the street, not a business. So a lot of like people will walk into a restaurant and they're like, "Well, I can film you. It's a public place." And it's like, "No, that's private property." There's a
True.
difference.
No, that's a great point. And it's kind of like businesses do like No, if you're being disrupted, they
Mhm.
can kick you out. Like, you don't have a right to be in a building because you wanna be in the building. Like,
Yeah.
they can kick you out.
Which is also why a lot of the times when you see pictures of celebrities with from paparazzi in restaurants and
It's
stuff,
when
it's
they're
from
leaving.
outside or
Yeah.
when they're leaving because
Mhm.
they can't just go anywhere and take photos of anyone at any
Exactly.
time, but you
It's
can as long as they're
outside
in the
in the public.
public. Yep. And so for the majority of history, paparazzi from the 1980s to the 2000s have been viewed as invasive, aggressive, and greedy men because they were mainly men for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think still probably are. I think it's a male dominated field.
Bring in women representation to the paparazzi.
And they commonly clash with public figures.
Yep.
Recently, they have become a little bit calmer and less combative. I think with the rise of social media and everything, shooting sensational photos is more accessible to the public. And
Mhm.
so it's also allowing celebrities to be in a little bit more control of what photos get put out to the public
Yeah.
as well.
I think that, like, now we've seen a more, like, symbiotic relationship between paparazzi and celebrities where
Mhm.
it's, like, now like, I'm thinking specifically of Taylor Swift. Like, if paparazzi is taking photos of Taylor Swift as she leaves a restaurant, it's because she is wanting them to document and like, you know, her appearance, and
Yeah.
it seems like they almost are tipped off that she's going to be there because, I mean, a lot of the time, we don't have any clue where Taylor Swift is. Like, it's obvious that, like, if she doesn't wanna be seen, she won't be seen, and so I think that's, like, almost, like, unfortunately been the situation is kind of like, "Well, we'll work with you sometimes then. Like, I'll give you
Yeah.
what you want so then you can leave me alone these times, but, like, let me set these rules, and then we can be on good terms, or if not, I'm just gonna hide from you all the time." Like, I think that's kind of what it's turned into.
Definitely. I think there is a lot more collaboration between them. And there's even like
Mhm.
people I know, like Kim Kardashian, Rihanna, they call the paparazzi on themselves.
I was just gonna say, yeah, to, like, start some buzz, you know? And I think, like, newer upcoming celebrities, they'll do the same thing to try and, like, get people talking about them.
Yep. Social media influencers, I know once they
Mhm.
reach a certain level have also been known to do that. They tip
Yeah.
off the celebrities. That's or the paparazzi. That's also like pap walks are a
Yep.
thing where they like tell the paparazzi, "Hey, I'm going to be
We're
here
gonna
at
be
this
here.
time."
Yep.
And then they go on a little walk, let them take some pictures of them. So, it's been interesting to see how that changes from
Yeah.
invasive, controlling, manipulative
To
situations to
now.
maybe a little bit more controlled.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the most recent time I can think of a time where that got combative again is with Justin Bieber and that, like, "What's
Mm,
not clocking?" Like, "It's
yeah.
not clocking to you like that I'm a husband, I'm a this," and I think that was, like, the first time in a while that I saw a celebrity, like, arguing with paparazzi, and I when I saw that, I realized, I was like, "Wow, I actually haven't seen this in a while," but
Yep.
there's videos like that all of the time from the 2000s with a bunch of
Oh,
different
yeah,
celebrities.
it was bad, yeah. Did you see the video of Millie Bobby Brown with the paparazzi recently too?
No, I didn't.
She was holding her baby, and they were getting up in her face,
No.
and she was, like, cussing them out, and that one
This
was
is my child.
justified. Yeah, because
Yeah.
she was just like, "Get away, like, I'm with my kid, like, what are you doing?"
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's been interesting. And then also, I think red carpet paparazzi have gotten a lot more polite. Chapel Roan
I was
called
gonna
them out.
say, mhm.
"Stop
I've
yelling at me."
there's, like, that clip of Sabrina Carpenter, I think, on an interview
Mhm.
carpet this year, and, like, she mouths like, "Oh, she scared you guys," or something, and, like,
Yeah,
kind
she's
of
like, "You're so much
acknowledging.
more quiet."
Mhm. Which I love.
Yeah, so in general, I think stars have gotten a little bit more demanding of, like,
Yeah.
respect from it, and then being able to have more of, like, a symbiotic relationship between the 2 of them, realizing that they kind of need each other, but it needs to be a little bit more
Less invasive.
yes, because it's so bad.
Something really fun to learn is the word paparazzo, which is, of course, like, what it's called now, was first coined in La Dolce Vita, which was a movie where Marcello Mastroianni played a delusion tabloid reporter that was navigating Rome's nightlife along his photographer companion, Paparazzo, who was a character who will do anything to capture the perfect shot, ride Vespas, lean from helicopters, and then chase celebrities through the street. This portrayal reflected like a real phenomenon that was happening in 1950s where those press photographers were hunting these candid images of all of these big movie stars, think like Audrey Hepburn, and they were wanting to capture them in just like everyday settings in the city. So Fellini's character Paparazzo was reportedly inspired by Felice Quinto, who was a photographer at that time, and he was called the king of paparazzi. And I guess he declined the role, but appeared as an extra in the film. And so eventually that term like was actually coined to now be what it's not tabloids, or photographers anymore. They're the paparazzi. And that's where that came from, which is like, it's so fun to see the ways that like media can influence culture in ways that like now we don't even know the reference, but obviously we're all using that word.
Yeah, no, I think it's hilarious. It just comes from a movie and now it's like the term for it.
Now it's just the word, like yeah, exactly.
So today we're talking about four specific women and incidents kind of surrounding them and the paparazzi and how they impacted their lives. And that'll be Princess Diana, Britney Spears, Amy Winehouse, and Kristen Stewart.
Mhm. Pretty unfortunately influential moments that I think were very much led by public buzz and paparazzi, obviously.
Yep,
Anyways,
definitely. I feel like when you think of Princess Diana, a lot of the times the paparazzi is hand in hand with her story. It was so pivotal and like important to everything that happened, sadly, in so many ways, right?
of course.
She was one of the first modern figures to be relentlessly consumed by the global paparazzi apparatus. They basically tried to get every relationship, every outfit, every facial expression, every family conflict blasted on the front
Everything.
page of the British media. They didn't just report on her life, they were constantly trying to create like a narrative of instability, betrayal, and spectacle that followed her everywhere. And the chase for photographs escalated so aggressively that it blurred into physical danger and even is one of the reasons why she died was because of the paparazzi. And a lot of the context behind this, so she was obviously the princess of Wales right during the tabloid explosion in the
Uh-huh.
90s to 1990s when tabloid media got really, really crazy and headlines were everywhere. And she was the most photographed woman in the world for a while.
Crazy.
They even had a nickname for her of the Princess of Sales
Wow. Talk
because
about
photos
dehumanizing.
yeah. Because, yeah, photos of her were worth thousands, leading to her being hounded and pursued. And you gotta realize this is before social media. You can't just snap a picture on your phone.
And anyone, yeah, not anyone can just post it on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, pictures of her were worth so much money. And especially after the separation between her and Charles, they were just hounding her every chance
Yeah.
that they got. And there's so many pictures of her all over the internet from the paparazzi. There would be like gym shots every time she would walk in and out of the gym. There's pictures of her with her sweatshirt and her bike shorts. In like I swear every outfit she ever wore to the gym, there's a photo matching it. And so she would get creative. She would wear the same sweatshirt every day to the gym in order to try and ruin their photos so they wouldn't be worth anything.
Perfect. Smart.
There's even some pictures of her walking backwards so they can't get pictures of her face.
Mm-hmm.
There were tons and tons of like swimsuit shots. I don't know what the obsession was, but if she would go anywhere on a boat out to the ocean, anything, they would be taking pictures of her relentlessly. There's that really like iconic photo of her sitting at the end of the diving board that looks a lot like the cover of I think
Yeah.
is
This
it
is a
Yes,
album?
the SZA
Mm-hmm.
album that kind of mirrors that paparazzi shot of Princess
Interesting.
Diana.
And I'd like literally never made that connection.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be inspired by it. They're so similar.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I feel like
Yeah.
I want to like research and like not to like fact check, but I'm just like, wait, is that how direct is that inspiration? That's really cool
Yeah.
actually.
Very, very similar shot there. So there's a lot of shots of that. There was a lot of like affair speculation. I think there even still is today surrounding Diana of like
Yeah.
all of that, which is kind of ironic considering she wasn't really the one having the affair. It was
Yeah, it's
Charles, but okay. Whatever. Photographers would hang off of the walls at Kensington Palace and swarming her car, forcing her to hide her face with objects like tennis rackets. She would use her purse, just anything to try and get people to leave her alone. If they could not get a clear shot, then it wouldn't be worth as much. She would have like a complicated relationship with the press. She would even say, like, I have a love-hate relationship with the media, or the media are so powerful they can make or break you. Because there would be times when she would like tip them off or like
Yeah.
let them know about something in order to kind of control the narrative a little bit more. But then there's other times when they're hounding her car and chasing her down the street that
Mhm.
it
Not
wasn't.
no. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a famous video of her with her kids out skiing, and she has to go up to the paparazzi and she kind of pushes the camera away and is like, "Hey, like as a mother, I'm here with my children. Can you please leave?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, can we just get one photo with all of you?" And she's like, "No, like, I'm here with my kids, and as a parent and as a mother, like, can you please
Mhm.
understand that and leave?" And I don't think they got a photo, I think they actually ended up leaving, but just kind
Wow.
of showing that, like, there were instances when she would go and try and negotiate with them in order to try and get her life a little bit more under her control. This also was kind of the pinnacle of paparazzi chase culture when it was at its
Yeah,
highest.
I think so.
People weren't thinking as much about the dangers that would come with that. So it was very much so like, get in the car and go. And then the paparazzi are chasing them with like cameras flashing in the car windows, trying to get
Mhm.
pictures. And it actually worked a few times. They got shots from with her, with certain people through car windows on the street, and they're chasing them down. And sadly, that's what led to the 1997 Paris crash that led to her death was the paparazzi chasing them and it leading to a car crash and her passing away
Mhm.
because they were so intent on getting photos and she was trying to get away and it just like
So
how
sad.
tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And that was kind of the turning point in all of that because Diana's death ended up changing the British media a lot. And I know that Britain in particular has more intense paparazzi laws. And Diana's responsible for that because when someone dies
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
of the paparazzi, they're going to make it a little bit harder for the paparazzi to continue getting pictures. Um, Let me see. I want to check this. A had jurors ruled at her inquest that she was unlawfully killed by both the reckless driving of their chauffeur and the paparazzi who were chasing her. And that was like a wake up call for the press. There was a poll conducted in 1997 that found that 43% of the UK public held photographers extremely responsible for the fatal
Wow.
smash. Whereas 33% of the country found the chauffeur to be equally culpable. Rogers, who was working for the BBC at the time of Diana's death, described the public displays of emotion at her funeral as incredible. You saw people weeping openly in the streets in a way that I had never seen before, and that was a real change, he said. If anyone asked me when Britain's stiff upper lip ended, I would have said then.
Hmm.
The British tabloids The Sun and the Mirror recorded their lowest sales figures since 1962 that year because
Wow.
of,
No one was gonna support
yeah,
that.
no one was
Interesting.
buying into it anymore. 8 days after Diana's death, the Daily Mail pledged to ban paparazzi photos from its pages, um, which is not reflected in the paper and its website now.
Interesting.
But for a while there, they swore that they would, and people kind of let the consequences be held a little bit stronger in
Hmm.
Britain, trying to allow privacy to exist beyond just private places
Yeah.
and allow a little bit more respect. And I think in large part, that's why a lot of paparazzi chases don't happen anymore. You don't see pictures through car windows of moving vehicles because they recognize that, like, people
It's
die.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's really, really dangerous. So, the toughest set of press regulations anywhere in Europe were created by the Press Complaints Commission, and the use of long lens photography to take pictures of people in private places without their consent was deemed unacceptable. They defined precisely what constituted private places and also included a clause which stated that an editor would be held responsible for publishing material obtained through persistent pursuit regardless of whether material had been obtained by the newspaper staff or freelancers. So basically putting the newspaper in
Responsible. I love
responsible.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for how the photo was obtained.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I think that is
Yeah.
very good. And I think hopefully, I mean, the sad thing is like you're like, oh, perfect. They learned so much from the 80s and 90s and what happened with Princess Diana. And then that leads pretty quickly into what happened with Britney Spears.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And this was like in the 2000s, which I think was like that decade is what I associate most like with paparazzi in the US, you know? To quote Britney Spears, she says, "I've been exposed my whole life performing in front of people. It's abusive. The paparazzi follow me everywhere. It's like they're waiting for me to mess up." She kind of became like the person in the 2000s. And what's interesting is Britney Spears had a very public breakdown, you know, between 2006 and 2008. And photographers were pretty much desperate to get this documented. And they were willing to do anything. They didn't care if it was embarrassing or any other piece of that. You know, they would camp outside her home, follow her car, document her most vulnerable moments, whether that was her crying at gas stations to the, of course, like to the infamous head shaving moment. And like, even though it was obvious she was in some type of mental health crisis, it's not like they were like, "Oh, you know what? I think we're going too hard. I think we're gonna do the right thing and step back." No, it accelerated. Like, it got even
Yeah.
worse. And these photos were sold, videos were replayed, memeified. That wasn't probably a term at the time, but, you know, monetized, of course, of just, like, turning her, like, legitimate breakdown into a public spectacle, turning it into entertainment value, very predatory of just like let's make help the whole world just like poke fun and laugh at her. Did you listen or read Britney's memoir that she put out?
No, I didn't.
I would totally recommend it. It's on Spotify, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. So if you want to listen to her audiobook, it's her reading it,
Mm.
which is really fun. But it was incredible to get her perspective on what was happening at that time. Because I feel like with growing up, I mean, in 2006, 2008, I was like, I guess I was almost in middle school at that point, right?
Mhm.
And I like Britney Spears was like the laughing stock. Like, can you believe her?
Yeah.
She's crazy. And that was universally like seen that way. And like, yeah, in the photos, she did look kind of crazy. But also,
Yeah.
she was getting caught in her most terrible, vulnerable mental health crisis moments. And it's like such a shame. Again, as I said, like, it's not like we as a collective world were like, you know what? She's going through a really hard time. We should just like leave her alone. It was like, no, 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 we want more. We want more, 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 more of this. And so I'm sure the pictures at that time were even more expensive for Britney Spears.
Oh, they probably made so much money off of
So
some of those shots.
much
Like,
money.
it's disgusting
Yeah.
how much they probably made.
I also kind of want to talk about what led up to that. So, of course, thousands, like I mentioned, was a big decade in this kind of culture. TMZ launches, Press Hilton blogs comes out. It kind of started this 24-hour celebrity news cycle. And what's interesting is I think the context for what was happening with Britney Spears leading up to this. She was obviously very hypersexualized as a teen. And then as she started to get older, I feel like she was very punished for being sexual. She was kind of
Mhm.
being like, well, you're supposed to be an example for our kids. Then also, obviously, it was like encouraged for her to be very sexualized as a child. She had pretty intense postpartum depression. And like in the book, she talks about the fallout of her marriage and what was happening behind the scenes in that marriage. And yeah, what was happening with her kids. And so it turned into this spectacle. There's a moment where she fights with the paparazzi, and it's almost like used as proof that she's this villain in this story. It's like the world relished in this like perfectly told story of like America's sweetheart turns crazy and evil, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, America's sweetheart, who we were horrible to when we were putting her on this pedestal, is now having a mental breakdown because we like abused her for decades at this point. It's, yeah, it's really sad. And then, of course, there's like obviously the head shaving. the umbrella attack, this custody battle that was happening. There's like a moment where her kid was like on her lap and people were like, she's obviously an unfit mother. Because
Yeah.
obviously that would be a horrible decision when in like reality, she was just trying to remove herself from the situation with paparazzi as soon as possible. And of course, yeah, sure, it would have been better if she would have put her kid in the car seat, but it's kind of like put yourself in that situation if you want to get out of somewhere as soon as possible. Like it's like pros and cons, like you have to choose one way to keep your kids safe. And when emotions are heightened, it's hard to do that. And also, too, then like photographers were also like egging her on to provoke a type of reaction, which I
Mhm.
think is even like it's so sick and twisted, where it's like, oh, this is the version of Britney that they want to see, that the world wants to see. So let's see if we can get it out of her so that we can sell this photo for thousands of dollars to help spin this narrative. Like, let's take a photo as unflattering as possible, where she's making a mean face, where she looks like she's gained a little bit of weight, and let the whole world start to speculate on it. And I think, like, I mean, that's something that was really common in the 2000s. The tabloids would like take photos of women and be like, is she pregnant? She's losing it.
Yeah.
She's getting fat. Horrible. Okay. But, it just all kind of turned into this. Like, how can we publicly humiliate these people? And I think Britney Spears and what happened with her is like almost like the case study of that,
Yeah.
Of course, we've talked a lot about the conservatorship that I think that like what happened with the media is what fueled this conservatorship because it almost just like swayed public opinion to a point that allowed for this to happen and to think it was absolutely necessary, which like we could go into the terms of the conservatorship of just like why were they sending her on world tours then if she couldn't, take care of
Yeah.
herself and
There's
manage
so
her own
many
estate.
things.
Like, okay. But then of course, it has eventually led to the Free Britney movement. She's outside of that conservatorship and has since, she's like now in the public a little bit more on her own terms. So it's really sad too. I think unfortunately we can like still see the effects of the abuse,
Yeah, I think this
with
week
what's
she
happening.
recently got a drunk
Yeah.
driving indictment or ticket. I'm not entirely sure if she was
It's
arrested for it or not, but
sad. Yeah.
yeah. But, like, think of what kind of effect that would have on your life, like,
Mhm.
growing up with that.
Yeah,
People just
absolutely.
hounding you and you like, yelling things at you and not
Mhm.
even really having a chance to become an adult before you're, like, getting attacked by the
Mhm.
public every single day.
It's
And then
terrible.
just being expected to just, like, go on and act like a normal person for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I agree. It's really tragic to kind of like see the effects of that in real time. And
Mhm.
I mean, I feel bad for Britney Spears, but I'm glad she was able to get out of that conservatorship because I do think that was very abusive and completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, and I hope she continues to get the help that she needs.
Same.
Love her.
Brittany. Kind of in a similar vein, we have Amy Winehouse. So I actually
Mhm.
wasn't able to find as much, like, retrospective, like, detailed, "This was a disaster, the press shouldn't have done this" with her as
Mhm.
it was with Diana, or even with Britney. I feel like there's a lot more where it's like, "The paparazzi were the villain."
Yeah.
But, like, this whole situation is so horrible that I
Mhm.
feel like the press should be held more responsible. Amy Winehouse was obviously a singer, very talented, but it was frequently overshadowed by her addiction that she had.
Mhm.
She was dealing with an addiction, and the paparazzi would just hound her and take pictures of her, like, stumbling barefoot or bleeding or visibly unwell and just splash them over tabloids everywhere, and so they would just try to take pictures of her in every single state that
Yeah.
they could find her and sell them for tons of money. And instead of shielding like a struggling artist, it fed on her decline, capturing her deterioration frame by frame. And this kind of led to more intensified surveillance instead of like letting off. Then it led to more people wanting more and more pictures of her. And by the time of her death in 2011, the paparazzi machine had documented nearly every single stage of her addiction and her unraveling. Like, I think there's
It's
even
so sad.
pictures from, like, the week before she died
Mhm.
out on the street, like, they've got pretty much every single instance
Yeah,
of
it's
her.
terrible.
It's horrible, and once again, that's the late 2000s, just in Britain instead, British tabloid culture. just as bad as the United States. They were constantly, like, monitoring her body
Mm,
deterioration, paying, like, very close attention to that. Any, like, bruise or cut or thinness or,
yeah.
like, anything was published for clicks. Crowds would chant at her decline. And they were, like, framing her as the villain constantly, like, saying she was unstable and toxic, self-destructive, difficult to work with. There was a constant paparazzi presence outside of her home, just mocking her appearance constantly, which
Mhm.
was very different from, like, male rock stars like Pete Doherty or, like, Charlie Sheen at the time, who
Yeah.
had very similar addiction situations going on, but weren't nearly as, like, hounded.
It's kind of like what we talked about with Whitney Houston last week, where it's like
Yeah.
she was interrogated of like, "Are you doing drugs?" And it's like, like, kinda think that's what male rock stars are doing pretty frequently, and I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's interrogating them about that, you know?
Nope. So it's like just a complete double standard where it's like, why did
Mhm.
she have to put up with this
Yeah.
when they weren't dealing with the same thing? She actually won an injunction against them. They were recording every aspect of her private life, obviously. And so she won a high court anti harassment injunction
Wow.
for them to like leave her alone because since her album had been released 6 years previous and then the 6 years following that, they hadn't left her house. I think they were outside of her house as a constant presence the entire time. So
Mhm.
she was able to win an injunction to ban them from following her, but I think they still did. They weren't allowed to, like, go, like, stalk her, essentially, is what she won. Is
Great.
they couldn't, like, follow her down the street, but they were still able to, like, camp outside her home, or if they stumbled upon her in public places, then it was
Oops.
okay.
Terrible.
So, yeah, but even the fact that she was able to win an injunction was, like, a huge
Mhm.
win in a lot of ways. But it kinda makes you wonder if, like, the media documenting her addiction was just documenting it, or if in a lot of ways that could have led to more of the
Yeah.
addiction problems that she was having.
I don't think it helped the situation, you know?
Ha, can't imagine that it
Um,
would.
yeah. Have you seen the Amy Winehouse documentary just called Amy?
No, I haven't, but I was gonna bring it up because
Mhm.
there's an article where they talk about how, like, her ex-husband isn't meant to be the villain of that film, the paparazzi are.
You should watch that. I haven't seen it in a couple years, and now just, like, talking about her right now, it is, like, inspiring me to go watch that. I remember when I watched it for the first time, just you really feel the weight of what happened to her and the tragedy of it, but I think that they do such a great job of, like, still honoring her as an artist, you know? It doesn't, like,
Mhm.
focus so much on, like, the spectacle or the tragedy of it that, like, that's all that you leave with, like, you really do leave with the fact of, like, what a terrible thing that happened to what could have and I think is one of the best artists of all time, but, like,
Yeah.
how sad that we only got that for such a short amount of time because of all of this that happened. Like, I think that it does an incredible job, and I think it does her story and her legacy a lot of justice.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember hearing about that documentary coming out.
Mm,
So, yeah, definitely one worth watching for sure. And yeah, that kind of leads to the turning point. She passed away in 2011,
yeah.
which then, of course, the media was able to immediately reframe everything and be like, oh, instead of ridiculing her, what a tragedy, and
Isn't this
capitalize
so
off of that.
sad? Yeah.
Yeah.
When
So,
yeah, it's terrible.
it really is.
For the last woman that we're gonna talk about, which I think there's a conversation too here with fandoms and how
Yes.
fandom culture can get very, very toxic. This is Kristen Stewart. Quote, with some of the things she said about paparazzi. They think it's okay to yell horrible things at you just to get a reaction. You don't realize how violated you feel until it happens. So, not only was Kristen Stewart in one of the biggest movie franchises book series of all times, Twilight, as Bella Swan, but she was also with a relationship in real life with Robert Pattinson, who played Edward Cullen.
Mhm.
So, of course, this is at the height of Twilight. And with, I think any couple that happens in Hollywood like that, it turned into this tabloid fixation with paparazzis stalking them. And I mean, it was like real life Edward and Bella. Like, we wanted to
Yeah.
see it. But then in a terrible twist. Photos surfaced of her kissing director Rupert Sanders. So the scandal definitely amplified, and the media circus just blew up because not only was she, the biggest star in the world at that point, she also cheated on Edward Cullen. Rough. So then I think it kind of turned into this like moral narrative, like let's
As so
burn
many
the
times
witch.
it does.
Yes. And like let me go on record and say it's bad to cheat on your partner. Obviously, it's not good that she cheated on Robert Pattinson. But like, let's, you know, not everyone who cheats on their significant other gets a public shaming to this level. And I don't really
I
think
would say
anybody deserves
very,
this.
very, very few people get
You're
the
right. You're right.
level of
Very, very few
shaming.
people get
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Okay. What's interesting though is even before the cheating scandal, I think a lot of people had things to say about how Kristen Stewart presented to the world. I mean, just
Mhm.
her personality. Like Bella Swan, it's not like she is a very bubbly, warm, super smiley person. Like people were accusing her of being awkward, of being cold, of being ungrateful even for this. They were really, really set on painting her as this like difficult, hard woman that I think that it almost made it that when this cheating scandal did happen, it was like, ha ha, we knew
Yeah.
it. She is an evil witch and we hate her. I think it just like validated the world in this weird kind of way. It's interesting how much we love it when people are just like exactly what we think they are. You know what I mean?
It's sad.
Yeah. It is really sad. And I think also this kind of like started this like public apology. Like, it's like, oh, we have to shame you for long enough as a public before we'll move on and forgive you. Because I think by now people don't really give a shit that
Yeah.
that she cheated on Robert Pattinson. That's not great. Not great, not great. Again, though, we can also talk about the villain edit that she got compared to the male directors involved. I mean, obviously, she was the more famous one, so whatever.
But once again, you gotta talk about, like, that power imbalance and everything,
Yes.
like,
Hmm.
she's a brand new star, and he's
Yeah.
the director, and,
We don't
he's
know what
way
happened.
older, and all this stuff, and
Hmm.
it's just like, is it truly fair how much was
One
piled on
person.
her? Yeah.
Yeah. I think also, again, like before the cheating scandal, it kind of was like the smile policing, those interviews were being weaponized. And also, like, it's almost like oh, we don't like it when a woman doesn't perform in the way that we think that she should. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, she's not smiling enough. I think we're seeing that in real time with Chapel Roan, to be honest,
Yeah.
with her kind of sometimes having a harder personality and being a little bit more strict in boundaries and not being what people think that she should be. Like, oh, she's being cocky. She's being difficult. She should be more grateful for what she
Yeah.
has.
The
I think
gratitude's a
it's,
big one. I feel like
yep,
people, they're like, "We need her to be more grateful for everything that
mhm,
we've given her as a
that
public."
we've given her. No, she wrote songs that we liked.
Yeah.
Like, it's a gift to us to consume this art. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see how that happens in lifetime even now. Also, I think this is the era where we really started to see that transition between paparazzi photos in grocery store checkout lines to being on our phones. Like
Yeah.
this is right in 2012 is I think that's the year I created my Twitter account. Like that's when I think it really started increasing more. And so then online hate campaigns with fandoms too. That's when we started to see it.
It's
And
like
it
she
can get
ruined the
volatile.
love story. She ruined Bella
She
and Edward
ruined
love story.
exactly. And it's almost like tainted the Twilight franchise of like, I can't
Mhm.
believe that she took away from that. And I think like the thing about it is it did feel so storybook. Like, what are the odds these two people play Edward and Bella, and then they fall in love in real life, and then they live happily ever after forever and just, get married to each other just like Edward and Bella did. It ruined this like beautiful story that I think fandoms were telling themselves at the time. And so
Yeah.
I think it really kind of like upped the stakes, especially with the online community, didn't make it any easier on Kristen Stewart. I think it just kind of shows how the smartphone really changed it. And like we touched on a little bit at the beginning, I would love to say like, "Oh, that's gone away. That's not a problem anymore." But even though celebrities have been able to kind of create a more mutually beneficial relationship with the paparazzi, it's interesting then to see how like the general public has like taken that seat of being like, okay, we'll be the toxic ones then. And we'll
Yeah.
like create these like online hate campaigns and like hold people to accountability for their actions by like public shaming and by publicly demanding apologies. And like, I mean, obviously, every single caveat in the world of like, obviously, if someone really does something wrong, if somebody does something terrible, they should be held accountable. But like, when are we just moral policing each other? Like, who among us, to quote the Bible, in fact, like those who have not sinned among us, let's cast the first stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is weird. I feel like there is this, like, holding of celebrities to, like, a higher standard than we would even hold, like, our friends and family.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and it's like, why do we expect, like, moral perfection from these
Mm-hmm.
people just because they're public figures when they
Yeah.
probably would have a harder time holding to, like, a moral standard because of the lifestyle that they're pushed into
Mm-hmm.
over, like, the people around us. It's interesting.
It is also interesting to see how that is going beyond public figures to just like everyday people who happen to
That's
be on
true.
social media and have
Yeah.
a video blow up. I saw a video on TikTok where we recorded the creator, her name's Hannah Glenn. She had a video and it links to an essay that she did on Substack where she talked about, quote, the internet is desperate to turn daily grievances into moral and ethical dilemmas. For example, reclining airplane seats, children screaming, like turning those almost into the trolley problem. And some of the comments were really interesting. So, for example, this person, the girl who admitted that she distanced herself from a friend that she was jealous of to not hurt her any well and so she could personally deal with it, and half the comments acted like she was cruel and scary.
Hmm.
Okay. Another thing is people being really, really like moralistic about kind of petty things. For example, this woman said, my opinion is always like, who cares? Don't contribute to the GoFundMe if you don't want to. For example, I think people were bringing up like the moral questions of celebrities doing GoFundMe. And it's
Mm.
like, if you don't think that resonates with you, just like skip past it. You don't need to argue the morality of it. Example, like put your headphones on if a child near you screams. Feel grateful that you don't have to deal with things. Don't like don't moralize it. This is my favorite comment. Quote from someone named Nick. The children yearn for the Salem witch trials and public hearings in the town square, parentheses, derogatory. And like, yeah, we kind of do, don't we?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how that has been what's happening is like all of this like black and white thinking of like, is that evil? Is that wrong? Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I even
It's
saw one
that.
recently with I think it just happened this week. A TikTok went viral of a girl talking about how if people start posting, like, pregnancy or marriage
Yeah,
content, she unfollows.
totally.
And, like,
Big
people started
conversation.
attacking her in the comments,
Mhm.
but there was a lot of back and forth. It was like, "Is that fair?" Or, like, "Should you get mad at people for something like that?" Should we get mad at her for not wanting to follow people who post that? And,
Mhm.
like, all this stuff, like, this huge controversy about, like, her just choosing to unfollow people who don't have content that she wants to look at anymore.
And that's the thing is I think we
Yeah.
put so much weight on an unfollow and it's like you don't know that person to unfollow. I can see both sides of that argument that
Yeah.
people are making, sure, but at the end of the day, if a content creator does change the content they make and you say, "Oh, I don't really resonate with this anymore. I'm going to choose to unfollow them." That's not an immoral act and that also doesn't equate to you saying I hate women and I hate pregnant people, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I think there's, like, decent points that are being made of just being like, just because a woman is pregnant doesn't mean the rest of her doesn't also exist. And, like, to be so anti-pregnancy and anti-children, like, unfortunately, being anti-children, I think, does inherently turn into being anti-woman.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair point. But again, like, this moralistic black and white, is it wrong? Is it good? I don't know. Let the woman unfollow somebody. Like, it's okay. It's, yeah. Yeah, a little
No,
intense.
I agree. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and I think it's something to like really think about as a society that we make sure we don't fall into like the place that the paparazzi took up previously.
Yes.
As the paparazzi lessons, we make sure that the public doesn't become the ones chasing down the cars trying to take pictures through the windows,
Mm-hmm.
either realistically or, metaphorically
Literally, yeah.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope that we as a species can just continue to learn from the past. But if I know anything, we're going to repeat it. We're going to
Yeah.
keep repeating history and not learn anything from it.
We
So,
don't seem to be very good at not repeating
no.
history, so we just all have to hope that it's slightly better than last time, right?
But I think the one thing we can all do is take personal stock of, you know what? Am I getting weirdly defensive about a stranger that I'm seeing online? What
Mhm.
could that be saying about my internal world? Maybe I need to go talk to a friend.
Yeah.
Like maybe I need to just go journal. There's a podcaster I like, Maddie Murphy from the Bad
Mhm.
Podcast, where like she'll just talk about it of just like, it's fine if you have hate comments, just put it in the group chat.
Yeah.
Tell it to your closest friends. Like if you've got something bad to say and you feel like you need to get it off your chest, just go tell your husband. Go tell your wife. Just tell your best friend. Don't put it in a public comment where they can see it cuz that can get mean.
Yeah. No, it can get really mean. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having criticism. It's just making
No,
sure
of
you're putting it
course.
in the correct channels, that it's not leading to unnecessary hate comments.
And also sometimes just like being so for real, just
Yeah.
like it's not that black and white. Like
Yep.
if you personally don't resonate with something and like think celebrity GoFundMes are tacky, you can have that opinion, but you don't have to say that anyone who disagrees with you is an immoral bad person. Like
Yeah. Man, wouldn't that be better if the world could just operate in a way where we don't think that everyone has to have the same opinions and lifestyles as us all the time in order to be a good person?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's rough out here. Anyways,
Boy. But
there's
yeah,
the
that's the
paparazzo.
paparazzi. And we hope all of you enjoyed this episode and are willing to tune in again next week. We're talking about scandals. We're talking about the double standards of media scandals, which will be super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Please tune in for that. Reminder to check out the merch on the website. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more. Our Substack is also live and goes out every month. And I think that's it. Other
I
than
think
our
that's it.
Manezumi moment.
Do our Minezimine moment.
Got so caught up in the paparazzi, almost forgot.
We
So,
really did.
to tie up our episode, we like to do a thing called the Manezumi moment, where we shout out a woman artist that deserves attention. And I wanted to talk about Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Ooh, fun. Yeah.
There's actually a TV station, I think it's free on most TVs now, where they just have Little House on the Prairie playing 24/7. And it's so calming and wonderful and just beautiful in so many ways.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. And then I recently saw a post from the Millionaire Woman's Club on Instagram where they talked about the fact that Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first book until she was 65 years old. And then that was able to turn around and start her empire that led to like the TV franchise and the books and everything else that exists today, which is just crazy. And then also, it's getting a reboot, I think. Anyway, so Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote the Little House on the Prairie series of children's books, if you're not aware, from 1932 to 1943. And it's based on her childhood as a member of a pioneer family on the American frontier. And it kind of shaped the image of what the American frontier looked like at the time, which
Mm.
honestly was very tragic, considering
Yep,
she
yep,
has
yep,
like
yep.
a sister go blind and a sister die. Like Little House on the Prairie is kind of a sad children's show, but I remember just being so charmed by it as a little kid, and Pa was really attractive, still is to this day.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's just like a charming, charming show, and I think it's so inspiring that she went on to like publish so late in life. We talk about this sometimes, how some people, they just hit their stride so much later, and how inspiring that is for a lot of us that are like
Mm-hmm.
trying to do things and feel like time is ticking.
Yep.
too fast and like you're just not accomplishing as much as you want to before you're 30 or 40 or
Totally.
yeah, and to realize that like sometimes it just happens later.
Yeah, I love that. What a
Yeah.
great reminder. Because I think as someone nearing her 30s, it's always a really good reminder to hear that my life isn't
Yes.
over out of
No,
my
you've got
20s.
so much
We got so
time.
much time.
Yeah, and it looks like Netflix is having a reboot of Little House on the Prairie that will be premiering July 9th, 2026. So,
Fun.
with a
Super
season 2
soon.
already announced, so we get more Little House on the Prairie.
Wow. What a wholesome way to end this episode. I
I
think we needed
know.
that.
Yeah. Just a little reminder. And go find that television station. It's on my parents' TV, and I know it's on mine too. And if you just want to watch reruns of Little House on the Prairie
I love
forever,
it. I'm
then you
obsessed.
can.
Then you can.
Yeah.
Congratulations, everyone. We did it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Come say hi on Instagram, YouTube, anywhere. We'll be
Mhm.
there. And tune in next week.
Bye.
Bye.